This is the Albuquerque Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week, we interview leading local business leaders to inspire the vision and spirit that is in every entrepreneur, discussing strengths, weakness, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together to fulfill a shared vision of a new future for Albuquerque.
Hi, my name is Jason Rigby, and welcome to the Albuquerque Business Podcast. Today on our show, we have a very special guest. I don't want to give it away, but we are going to be talking about how to run a successful political campaign in the new 21st century landscape for local and statewide. This podcast has been brought to you by 99.9 The BFM. If you live in the Albuquerque area, tune in to 99.9 FM. And also we want to thank Duke City Marketing, www.dukecitymarketing.com. They are the latest state-of-the-art digital marketing agency in Albuquerque. So today we have owner of Red Elephant Campaigns and Marketing. She's also a veteran campaign manager and political consultant, Becky Funk. How are you doing today, Becky?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, perfect. So I want to go into, we talked before the show a little bit about Idaho is probably one of my favorite three states. Of course, I'm in New Mexico, and I'm from Washington State. But every time I go to Boise, but you're not in the Boise area. Where are you at?
I'm up in northern Idaho. I'm actually just across the Spokane River from Spokane, Washington.
Oh, awesome. So that's perfect. Every time I go to Idaho, it's always like this amazing, like perfectly clean area that's so nice. And so it's one of those states that hopefully not very many people move to, huh?
Well, you know what? And percentage-wise, we're actually one of the fast-growing states in the country. So
oh, really?
People are learning that we're kind of the place to be.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that. As far as like Boise goes, they come down here and play the UNM, and so those games are always more packed. People come down here. I think they want to enjoy the weather. And stuff.
Yes, but it's it's a beautiful state. It's been a great place to raise our children, and been up here for nearly 20 years. So it's kind of home.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I want to go if you don't mind, if you could start off, Becky, explaining a little bit about your business and what you do.
Okay, well, just in a nutshell, the tagline for my business is promoting good government through qualified candidates. And one of the things that I discovered being in the political arena is that a lot of candidates, a lot of people would like to run for office. They don't even know where to start, or they have small budgets. And so I kind of saw an opening to start a business where I'm able to help candidates just kind of navigate them through the process, give them the support that they need, within their budget. Because some campaigns, they have a bigger budget than others, so they're able to do more. So I try to work with individual campaigns and try to map out, okay, how can I help you with the resources that you have?
Yeah, and I think that's something probably I was helping you a little bit on the digital marketing side when you were here in New Mexico. And I think it's something we all have these, especially if somebody's, wanting to run, because we have a lot of business leaders that listen to this podcast. Mm-hmm. They're wanting to run, and they have these all grandiose ideas, and you're the person who has to nicely come in there and tell them exactly where they need to be at and what the criteria is and because costs can go so quickly.
It's amazing how much you can spend on a campaign. And because there's so many elements, so many avenues to get your messaging out there. I mean, you certainly have the social media, you have your radio, your TV advertising, you have literature that you can mail out, you can take on advertising in the newspaper. So there's just various methods of getting that message out, but figuring out, okay, which one is going to give you the best bang for your buck, or what combination is going to give you the best coverage.
Yeah, and I think that's something that where you come in, and that's something that I notice here is like you really get a feel of not just the candidate and understanding him, but understanding the landscape of where they're at. Can you describe a little bit some of what you do specifically for a campaign? Like somebody hires you and they bring you in a campaign, how do you help them out?
Okay, so first of all, we're going to sit down and we're going to have a come to Jesus meeting. And by that, I mean, first of all, I'm going to find out, is this something that they really want to do? Some people get this idea, it's like, gosh, I want something. And maybe that something is running for office, but maybe they would be better off doing something else. Maybe their place is to be more of an activist or to be a support. Not everyone is cut out to run for office.
Right.
And so the first thing that I want to do is find out, does this person have what it takes?
Yeah, and I think that's something that if they have that type of attribute that's for office, and you've seen that. I mean, I don't know how many campaigns you've done exactly, but
Oh, yes.
now one of the questions I have when somebody hires you, and let's go ahead and get the plug in if we want. What is your website?
Okay, it's redelephantcampaigns.com.
And you go all over the United States, or how does that work?
I've been basically in the Northwest, focusing in the Northwest. Of course, now I have some exposure in the Southwest, thanks to the campaign that we both worked on back in the fall. So, but through the magic social media, through telephones and Skype and FaceTime and all of that stuff, we have a lot more opportunities. You can work in D.C. but still live Idaho.
Right.
We have a lot more, so there's a lot more opportunities than there was a few years ago.
Now, are you willing, like if a candidate's listening to this and they want to consult with you over the phone or something, is that something you do too, or?
Oh, after a consultation. I always say I give you an hour. Honestly, it usually works into 1.5 to 2 hours because there's just so much there's so much information to cover.
Right, exactly.
I love, what I tell people is I love the process. To me, it's very interesting. There's a lot to it, and I love being able to share what I know with other people, and especially other candidates.
Yeah, because I think, like you had said earlier, there's all these ideas. So being able to start off having that come to Jesus meeting in the beginning can set you off, because that trajectory can be so off by the time you're 3, 4, 6 months into it.
Yes, and one of the things too is that it's two-way interview really, because not only are they checking me out to see am I someone that they're interested in working with, but I'm also checking them out to see if there's someone I want to work with. So so it's kind of a symbiotic thing there.
Yeah, exactly, because you don't want to be with somebody that because you're looking at it in the viewpoint of it being government, and these are people that are going to make major decisions. Is it an ego thing, or are they actually wanting to serve?
Right, yeah. And you have to have those conversations and find out. And I know that during that first conversation, one of the things that I will actually do is see if I can talk someone out of running. Because if I can talk them out of running, they don't need to be in it in the first place.
That's so good, because when the grind starts hitting, if you don't have that tenacity, it's done.
It is. It absolutely is. It really takes a lot of fortitude to get through a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people understand that haven't been closely involved, just the amount of pressure that candidates go through during that election season.
Yeah, I worked with you a little bit. I just, because kind of behind the scenes on digital marketing side, and saw the amount of work that you guys were putting in. I mean, when it gets closer to the end, I don't know how many hours they were working, but it seemed 17, 18-hour days.
Oh, it's crazy the amount of time that puts into it. Now, I will say that when I was in New Mexico, I was working as a campaign manager, not a consultant. It's a little bit of a different role. And I was fortunate enough, I had a young man here who was able to take care of my consulting business while I was in New Mexico taking care of the congressional race.
Oh, that's perfect.
There's no way because there's no way you can do both at the same time.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, you were, it was basically boots on the ground here, It was early morning emails, late night emails. I was just the small part of it, and I was getting all that from you, so.
Right, yeah. No, it's, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of tenacity, and it takes a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. Which is a good thing. I can tell you, it's a good thing that it's seasonal, because there's no way you could keep up with that kind of a schedule 24/7, 7 days a week indefinitely. I mean, you've got to know that you've got to start and to finish.
So what would, like in your arena, what would cause you to be excited to be able to do this? Especially because a lot of people look at politics and we know our ratings and where they're at and all that. So I don't want to use the word possessed, but why are you willing to do this and step in this arena?
Well, it's something that has I've always been interested in how government works. I've always been interested politically. I mean, I tell people I ran my first campaign when I was in third grade. That was back in 1972. So, dating myself a little bit here.
Right.
But my third grade class, there was an election taking place that year. And we had a mock election in my third grade class. And I was the campaign manager for one of the candidates. And my candidate won, by the way, so it's my first win. But that just kind of, it just always interested me. And I think ever since then, I've caught every national convention every year or every 4 years as they've turned out. And it's just something that I've cared about. I think some of us just, some people are interested in sports. I'm interested in politics.
That's awesome. So you basically have years and years and years of doing this. One of the things that I want to talk about, especially for people, business leaders that are looking at, maybe running, or they're looking at hiring a campaign manager, what are some good attributes for a successful campaign manager?
Well, first of all, I think that you want someone who is going to have your back. One of the things, and this is what I tell people that are interested in getting in the business, is that first of all, as a campaign manager, elections are about people. Elections are about the voters. But campaigns are about the candidate. And you've got to have someone who is going to be loyal to you, someone who will throw themselves under the bus for you, someone with integrity, someone who's a team player, all of these things. But you want someone who's going to be able to, you've got to be able to get along. You've got to be able to have that mix. We all have people that we enjoy working with. And so you've got to have somebody that you like, because you're going to be spending a whole lot of time together. But I would say someone that you trust, someone that you can get along with, someone that can help you navigate through the field and get around the minefields. Occasionally those mines, you're going to hit a mine, and someone who's not going to get all bent out of shape, but who's going to walk you through that. And those are all things that you want to look for. But make sure that whoever you hire is someone that's going to have a level of integrity, because, I've been around where there are campaign managers that they feel like the end justifies the means, so they're willing to do things that are a little shady.
Right.
And you want to avoid that.
Right.
That's going to come back and bite you big time.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even think about it, but a campaign manager could probably destroy you as quickly as they could promote you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I can tell you a story that happened here in a congressional race is the campaign manager actually took a speech that Obama had made and plagiarized it. Had the candidate read that speech. Of course, we're in the information age. Of course, that was found out. But not only did it happen once, it happened twice.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. So it was a
that went national,
hit
probably.
To that campaign, and the guy lost.
Off of somebody plagiarizing a speech, thinking
all because that campaign manager was willing to plagiarize a speech. Mm-hmm.
So because I know you've had years and years and years of experience in this, if somebody's wanting to start out and they're wanting to run for office, what would be some of the first steps that you would suggest to them?
First thing is find your support. You want to make sure that you're going to have not only support as far as voters go, but make sure that you have people that are financially committed to backing you. It is not cheap to get elected, and unfortunately, money is an object. And the more money you have, the more you're able to do, the more you're able to get your name out there.
Right.
And that plays a huge role.
Because you've seen great candidates not win, probably off of that, huh?
Absolutely. No, I've had some people that would be amazing elected officials that just couldn't make it. They couldn't get past the finish line. And so I always tell people that fundraising is huge. Make sure that you have someone who will help you fundraise. That is their job to do.
And have those connections and have that network and the ability.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
they've got to know who to talk to.
Right, exactly. I've seen candidates that feel like their name alone is going to get them elected.
Yes, there are, but that's not true.
Exactly.
That is not true. And I think the other thing is, we talked about this. Why are you running? And if your why needs to be a good reason. Your why can't be, well, I've done everything else. I just always thought I wanted to run for office. No, that's
good.
not a good reason to run.
Right.
You need to run because you have something to offer that will make government better for whoever you're representing. And that's really important. The other two things I would say, ask yourself, are you qualified? Do you have what it takes to be in office? Because I don't care how right you are on the issues. If you are not able to do the job effectively, then you don't need to be trying for it.
Right.
Secondly, is, are you electable? You can have, you can be completely qualified, you can be right on the issues, but if you're not electable, and I don't even know how to describe that in real terms. I kind of call it's kind of that X factor.
Right.
Either you are or you aren't. And quite frankly, if you're that person that sits in the back of the room, you're not good at talking to people, people don't really listen to what you have to say, that's probably not you.
Yeah, and that's like an ego check there.
It is, yeah. You definitely have to have some leadership abilities. You've got to be able to message yourself effectively. And if you don't possess those skills, then, support someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's critical because leadership at the end of the day is what everyone's looking for, the voters are looking for.
Exactly. Some other things that I would say, can you make the commitment? Because you're going to take a hit, especially if you're in business, you're going to take a hit with your time that you're able to spend on your business. How does your family feel about it? If you're married, how does your spouse feel about it? Are they going to support you? If your husband or your wife doesn't want you to run, then don't run.
Right.
So there are more important things in life than running for office.
Yeah, not just a feather in the cap.
Yeah. And, find out from people, friends and so forth. Are they encouraging you? Are they encouraging you for the right reasons? Do you have, talking about qualifications, do you meet the legal requirements for running for state office or federal or local or whatever?
Is there something in your
history that maybe should come out? I mean, we've seen a lot of that lately.
Yes, exactly. That needs to come out right at the beginning.
Yeah. And I think you need to be able to adequately express, and it needs to be a brief but compelling answer. And that's something that only you can come up with as a potential candidate. You've got to decide why am I running, and how do I tell people why? It was interesting, back a few years ago, Ted Kennedy was running for president. Actually, it's been more than a few years ago. He was asked by a reporter, why were you running? And he's just kind of deer in the headlights saying, I'm running because I'm a Kennedy is not a good reason to run.
Right.
So, so it's funny because even professional politicians can get caught up with that question.
Yeah, and I think it's so important. I know somebody who lost 40% gross in their business because they weren't involved in the business while they spent the year and a half preparing for the campaign.
No, it's a huge running for office is a full-time job, and if you've got to make sure that they're going to be flexible. Of course, different, depending on what you're running for, it's different running for school board than it is running for governor.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you still have to, but if you're working for someone else, ahead of time and find out, are you going to allow me the flexibility that I need to do this? And some employers are going to be more gracious than others regarding that. So, and I mean, I don't want to slam employers at all. Sometimes they just cannot afford to give you the flexibility that you might need.
Right, exactly. Or if you're, depending, I've seen a lot of people, that may be veterans that are retired. That's great. Those are things that can, that you can do because you want to continue to serve. But if you're, like my friend, if you're running a full-time business and you're in it day in and day out, that's a risk that you're going to have to look at.
Well, absolutely. And I was talking to another candidate that was actually running in the same race that my candidate in New Mexico was running in, and the person was explaining to me, said, "Yeah, I probably lost $150,000
right,
by running for office." And, because he's the business. So those are definitely things that unless you just are independently wealthy, those are definitely things that you have to take into consideration.
Yeah, I could imagine. Well, I kind of want to ask the big question, if you don't mind. And I know this is probably,
sure,
but I want to know, with your expertise, I want to know, what are political campaigns struggling with now?
I think, first of all, raising money. Raising money is always the hardest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always the last thing any candidate wants to do. So, so that's something that's really a struggle. But I think the other thing is we have become so polarized. And I think that's more in the realm of what we see going on in D.C. and the mainstream media and so forth. But that comes across as a generalization that we're polarized. But I think by and large, at least those of us that live in middle America and flyover country, I think that we share most of the same values.
Right.
And to message to just your average, everyday, ordinary Joe. I think that's really a struggle because there's so much noise going on around us about this and about, well, President this or the Speaker of the House that. I mean, there's so much, like I said, there's just so much polarization going on that it's hard to break through that and reach those issues that are important to those of us that are just everyday Americans just trying to live our lives.
Yeah, especially on a local level, I would think.
You know, the people that watch, you know, they're always watching the news, whatever side of the aisle they happen to sit on. You know, maybe they're watching MSNBC, maybe they're watching
Right.
Fox News. But, you know, and they're looking at, so they're looking at those big issues. But I think the average voter is really more concerned about how does this affect my life today? If you're elected into office, is it going to make my life every day better or worse?
Right.
Or is it going to stay about the same?
Right. No, and I think that's so important.
So we have to, so those of us in the communications business, we have to, you know, I think that we really have to up our game and make sure that we're reaching those people, because those are the people that at the end of the day make the decision on who wins and who loses.
Yeah, we had a local candidate here, and the issue was water. The national platform is, you know, the city's worried about a water issue. Where are we going to get water? And you know, that would have been something that he could have went on instead of sitting here, you know, polarizing himself with the party.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it's really important. And I think most people don't identify as definitely Republican or definitely Democrat.
Right.
I mean, there's those of us who are political that do. But I think your average person, like I said, that's just going to work every day. They're trying, you know, they're trying to raise the best job they can, and they don't have time to think about all that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and so I think that we need to look at, you know, what is important to them. What are, you know, what makes them tick? What are the things that upset them? What are the things that make them happy? And I think we spend too much time trying to find that correct soundbite than trying to figure out what the real issues are that are going to make them like you or not like you.
That's good. Yeah, exactly. So one of the things I want to get into, because I know, you know, with entrepreneurs too, I know you own a business.
Right.
Are there any important business lessons that you've learned in owning your own business and also being in politics?
Don't wait until February to start working on your taxes.
Oh, that's a big one for all of us.
You know, it's always like, oh, I can write down my mileage later.
Oh, I know about that one. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. But now, so there's a lot of this just life. It's just, you know, relationships and getting along with people. I never promise someone, if I'm, you know, when I'm taking out a candidate, I never promise them that they're going to win.
Right.
That's just not something I can do. I can't promise them that they're going to be on the 6 o'clock news at a certain day or whatever. So, but I like to, but I try to do more.
Right.
The other thing, getting back to that integrity, circumstances come up and you can't do it. Just be honest and say, look, this isn't going to happen. I'm really sorry. Take ownership of it. And most people are pretty forgiving and understanding, because we all know life happens and we can't control everything.
Right.
Just be a nice person.
Yeah,
it's
that's
amazing.
it's
how
so
far
simple.
That will get you. I know, it's like kindergarten, you know.
Right.
Kind of on that, treat people with respect whether they deserve it or not. It speaks a lot more about you than it does about them. And you never know what kind. You know, sometimes somebody's just having a bad day.
Right.
And we need to be willing, and we have bad days too, and so I think it's important to cut each other some slack, extend that grace when you have the opportunity to. And some people are going to take advantage of that, but most people are just going to appreciate it.
Right. And how many
they're gonna
candidates
want
have
to
you
do better.
had? How many candidates have you had that has vented to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, and you just have to let people do that. Don't burn bridges.
Right.
You know, ask someone a favor or for their help. It's just to not burn bridges. You don't have to agree on everything, but you can agree to disagree in a civil way.
So, go ahead.
Oh, the other
Sorry.
thing I was going to say, that as a business owner, especially, and I'm just a business owner. I'm not even going to say especially in politics. Just as a business owner, you know, be careful what you post on social media. I see some really stupid things that are posted on social media, and I'm just like, do you have any clue how that makes you look? You know, keep it light, keep it informative, but don't be vulgar. don't be divisive.
Yeah, it's surprising how many people are going back to, even if you're in your 30s, early 40s, they're going back to when you're in high school looking at social media.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell people, it's funny though, because I was actually talking to a local candidate here, just doing a courtesy consultation with him. And, one of the things I told him, I said, make sure that you go back and look at your social media, see if there's anything there and he's like, yeah. And I said, remember, Wayback Time Machine is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And people will look you up. We are no longer, you can't hide that indiscretion.
No, that screenshot's forever.
Somebody knows, and you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I've seen that over and over again. I mean, on Twitter especially, it seems like, something that you said when you were 18, 19, or 20, or a picture that you posted or whatever it may be, that is such valuable advice.
Yeah, it is. I am gifted with a very sarcastic sense of humor. I don't know. Sometimes it's a blessing. A lot of times it's a curse. And, so I'll even be looking at something that somebody else has posted, and I'll have this snarky thought come in my head, and it'll be like, better not put that on
there. Just taking that couple seconds to think before you post.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, taking time to think is really, really good.
Yeah, no, a lot of times just by retweeting something or putting something out there, you may have alienated 50% of your voters.
Well, but here's the deal with that. Depending on what it is, if it's something that is really negative towards another candidate or a group, so be really careful. Be really careful about that. Now, you can be factual,
right?
And kind of what I call, kind of that soft negative, where you're not being. It's one thing to tell if you tell your girlfriend, I really like this other dress better on you.
Mm-hmm.
Is a lot different from saying, that is the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to get two different responses there. But in the political world, pretty much anything that you post, you're going to get fun. It just happens because you got people in two different camps. And everybody's not going to like everything about you. Everybody's not going to vote for you. But when you're doing that, you're trying to reach your audience.
Right.
There are other audience that you're never going to reach no matter what you try to do. And so, so you need to, and so you're trying to hit your audience and those people in the middle.
Yeah, no, and
so
I think
have
that's
to ignore
important.
The rest of it.
So I want to talk to you because you were down here and you work with a candidate, and we don't have to get involved in that arena on here. We'll keep it kind of generic in that arena. But you saw New Mexico, kind of from Idaho, coming down here, being in D.C., having a national landscape. What do you think of the New Mexico political landscape?
New Mexico is really, really interesting. And I grew up in Texas right next door. And there was so much difference between New Mexico and Texas. I was really surprised at the amount of diversity, just the cultural diversity that's in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of took me back a little bit, just as far as how much diversity there was between you have your Native Americans, you have your Mexican Americans, you have your Spanish Americans. It's just you just have a whole potpourri of people. And they all have so much pride in their state and so much pride in their own culture. And, it's just really a beautiful thing to see. So that was kind of surprising to me because because I've been living for the last 20 years in a very homogenous part of the country. I really enjoyed experiencing that. But politically, there's a lot of diversity. And what I found kind of interesting about that was that I think most people there, once again, share a lot of the same values.
Right.
There's differences in how we get there. They have a lot of the same concerns, but there's differences in how you solve those problems that they're perceiving. And so that was really interesting. I think that just the amount of diversity that was there culturally and politically.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me. I mean, and you saw this too, whether you're liberal or conservative, family's important.
Yes.
And so seeing, how candidates address that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I noticed that I just admired so much was the familial element that I saw in every people group represented. Mm-hmm. And it's truly a beautiful thing to see and to see how important family is to New Mexicans and those family values and looking after each other. And it was, it was just wonderful and experience that with people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know it can be a little bit, coming from the Northwest, I know it can be I know it was a culture shock for me when I came down here from Seattle. So,
Yeah.
but of course, one of the things is I know Louisiana is number one. We're number two with schools and crime. I think we're
Hmm.
number one now for carjackings. And so there was a
Yeah.
lot of issues with the struggle having a state that doesn't like Washington State or Oregon or Idaho that have
Uh-huh.
that abundance mentality compared to, a state that's trying to merge.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that is definitely kind of unique to New Mexico. My husband, his work has led us different places. We've lived in a lot of different places. New Mexico is very unique.
Mm-hmm.
And
We're not Texans.
you're not Texans, no. No, you're not. Mexico there is kind of and I think because of partly because of the education system, I think that there's not as much emphasis put on individual innovation and so forth.
Yeah, that's so good. That's right.
So, yeah. And I don't feel I just saw illustrations of people very, very good people, that their outlooks were not as positive as they could have been. They were looking more into what they didn't have than being grateful for what they did have and the possibilities that were there.
Yeah, I just interviewed the CEO of the largest and fastest growing tech company here in New Mexico. And he was shocked the amount of young kids, our kids' ages that are moving out of New Mexico to find tech jobs. So he's actually paying people to come back, work for his company. But it's sad to see all the talent. When we have that talent, we have that ability here to see it to go, and they're leaving and going to North Carolina and California and Seattle and all those areas.
Right.
It leaves a deficit here that we need business, and that's extremely important for any infrastructure.
No, you have to have, you're either growing or you're losing ground.
Mm-hmm.
There's no in the middle. I mean, you can be stagnant for a short period of time, then you start going backwards.
Right, exactly. Yep, exactly.
And I know people here, they complain about the growth, but if we're not growing, then we're dying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because, like in Idaho, you can go the positive stigmas or the negative stigmas. I mean,
right, exactly.
You have states that majority of your state is pretty conservative. Crime levels are down, you could look at, but having the ability for Idaho to have some diversity is something that is needed in that arena too.
Right. Yeah, and we are getting more of that. But of course, where I live, we're not a major population center, but we are right next door to Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
But in Idaho itself, we're not the major population. That's really in the Boise area, and you are seeing a lot more diversity. You're seeing a lot of growth in the Boise area. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to policies that are favorable to businesses, that attract businesses to come here, that give them the ability to grow. That's what they're looking for. And so we are creating jobs. We are creating higher paying jobs now.
Right. That's awesome.
It's not just tourism here anymore. We actually have tech things coming in.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, and I think that's something New Mexico's missing. We just had Netflix come, here to Albuquerque, and but one of the things that we're seeing here is, that we need to make sure that we understand, and candidates need to understand, if you don't have good businesses locally, then you don't have good wages.
Right. No, and that is so true. Typically when businesses do well, they're happy to share that with their employees.
Right.
They want their employees to be happy because they want them to stay and they want them to produce. It's in their best interest to provide good wages and benefits in order to do that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, I kind of want to let's get back a little bit into the campaign.
Okay.
What would you change about because, I know you get 35 years and younger, these millennials, they're looking at, politics in a whole different light than we are now. And I know majority of voters are probably, you're the expert in that arena. I don't know what the age group is, but how can political campaigns change? What would be your advice in how they're ran?
So as far as there's certain nuts and bolts that it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter who you are or what group you're trying to reach. There's certain nuts and bolts that you just have to follow.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as things that you can do, probably one thing that I would do, provided I had the resources to do it, is I would try to reach different groups different ways.
Mm.
So I know that 55 and older voters, they still get mail.
Right.
And I would probably be more likely to target them through mail, through the newspaper, those sorts of things. Your Gen Xers and younger, I'm probably going to spend more trying to reach them through social media, through radio, through web advertising, that sort of thing. So I think that being able to target individual groups where they are, I think is really where we have to go. And one of the things that we're still holding true, though, is that most voters are, over the age of 40. They're still the most consistent voters.
So in reaching those people at that age group, that's something that and then being specific with that's something that you condone.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and I think you have to, here's the other thing, is we've got to start having more conversation, more dialogue with Gen Xers and younger. We've got to start finding out what really makes them tick. What are they looking for? Because I think that there has been this false narrative that Gen Xers are a bunch of, lazy snowflakes that are just looking for a hand. And I don't think that's true. Maybe that's true for some. I don't think that's true for the majority.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to stop mischaracterizing them as a generation and find out, what do they want? Whatever generation you're talking about, when we're young, I mean, we're trying to figure out, what are we going to do? How am I going to support myself? What interests me? And that's been true for every generation. Come on, that's certainly not something that just stopped with Generation X or with the millennials.
Right.
It's just something that is common. But we've got to do more. We can't just brush young people off. So maybe they're not voting right now, but at some point they probably will be.
And it's interesting because, Becky, as well as I do, when you look at a Ben Shapiro or a Joe Rogan, they're doing 3.5 hour podcasts. And it's all 30-year-olds that are listening to 2 to 3 hours. I mean, Ben Shapiro, every time he goes to college, he packs out the auditorium.
Yeah, and we've got to do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the other thing, and we've got to start raising younger people to run for office. We've got to start teaching them what they need to know to run for office and have them be prepared. Sorry, both parties too often are the party of old white guys.
Yes, I agree 100%. Yes, that's exactly right.
I've been to the Republican club and the Democrat club in my town. There's a lot more gray hair. When I'm the youngest person in the room in my mid-50s, we have a problem.
Yeah, and there's so many young people that want to get involved, they just don't know how.
But here's part of the problem. This is what I've seen, at least here in my community, is there's a reluctance for the more seasoned people who are in charge and in leadership to pass that baton. And so there's got to be a willingness on their part to do it. And so they have to be willing to give up their own personal power in order to do that. One of my favorite president of all time is George Washington. And because I think he's just a great example of someone who was not seeking power to begin with, but served out of a sense of responsibility. And then when his time was up, he just left. He left. He let somebody else take over. And, and I think that was just such a gift to set that example. And it's something that whatever party that you're in, we need to start doing that ourselves.
Right, and I think the younger generation, generation wants something that it seems like from when I talk to them on the, I have a digital marketing company, so it seems like when I talk to them, they want more transparency, and that's something with the 5-minute sound bites, whether it's CNN or Fox News, whatever it may be. These long tail dialogues that you're seeing on podcasts, I mean, even now, we're fixing to wrap it up. We've gone 50 minutes already. It's a craving for something that, and it's so funny to me because when you look at how rapidly podcasting is hitting, and you look at a Ben Shapiro and he has 5 million views in a day, or you look at a Joe Rogan on the other side and he'll have 10 million views in a day. And it's so funny to me. We've almost gone back to the way that radio was back in the old days.
Yes.
And it's exciting to me because I think that these 5-minute little quick sound bites are going to be in the future a thing of the past.
Well, and honestly, they should be. I mean, you're never going to get completely away from it.
Right.
Yeah, but people need to be able to have more than just that 5-minute blip.
Mm-hmm. Does the candidate understand what they're talking about? And I think that's something that we've seen in this last election cycle, and we're seeing, and it'll be interesting what happens in 2020. And I know you've got your pulse on that more than anything. What do you think is going to be the future of here in the United States on the political side of things?
Well, I feel like we're at crossroads. I think we've got some issues, and if I knew if I could wave my magic wand and fix it, I would. Or if I had a crystal ball and I could predict everything, I would be making a lot more money than I do now. But we're kind of at a crossroads, and I think part of it has to do with the younger voters. They didn't have the same lessons in civics that I had growing up. I'm a little older than you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember having government class in high school, studying capitalism and free enterprise and these sorts of things. The things that our country was based on, it was not taught from a partisan point of view. It was just, this is the foundation. And too many of our schools are not teaching those basics anymore.
Especially on the higher education side of things in colleges and stuff.
No, yeah, and you're not getting that so much. I have 2 kids in college, and they will tell me what they've learned or haven't learned in government class. But we have a whole generation of civically illiterate people, and we've got to start. So one of the things that we've got to do is just start teaching. We're going to start educating the electorate on how government works, how it functions.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just, I know AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's always in the news now.
Right.
And she's just come out with her new Green Deal. So I'm not going to criticize her. I don't agree with her. I will be very upfront about that. I don't agree with her.
Right.
But I believe she believes everything that is in that because that's what she was taught.
Right, exactly.
That's what she learned. And it doesn't matter looking at history and seeing that, this is what's happened with socialism in this country, in this country, in this country, in this country. But she actually believes all of this. And so we have a whole generation that's the education system that they grew up in. We've got to be able to show that the free market, capitalism, a representative government, those are things that really work. Those are things that when they're practiced, more people prosper.
Exactly.
And more people get ahead. One of the things, Ben Shapiro, that's one of the things he'll talk. He will talk about those things, and so he is doing that, and he is educating, a sector of the electorate with that. But I think that more candidates and more politicians need to be talking about how does government, how does this work?
Right, and I think willing to have those conversations where they, there's a reason why he's packing out. He's going to colleges and packing them out, and they're taking a mic, and they're very passionate, and they're saying, here, Becky, you know as well as I do, my dad was an old Southern Democrat, so, he later switched to the Republican Party, but he had so many friends that were Republicans, so many Democrats, and they would sit and talk, and they were friends. I don't understand this anger on both sides now.
Yes, and that is something that is funny because there was actually a man who helped out the campaign when I was in New Mexico. He called me a week or so ago. That's one of the things that we were talking about, and it's not only one party against the other, it's factions within the parties fighting each other.
Yeah, and that right there is a breakdown.
Yeah, and so, it goes, it just kind of goes back to be nice, be a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
I know back in my early days when I would be working on a campaign, volunteer or whatever, one of the things that would happen at that time was everybody would get together afterwards and would sit and would talk, and we wouldn't talk strategy, but we would talk in general terms because we were having similar experiences. We were able to bond over those experiences and we could have very vigorous conversations, but it was okay because we weren't personally attacking someone. We weren't, this person's the devil because they think this, or it just gets...
We were still all Americans.
It just gets ridiculous. And I think part of that is, I'm thinking off the top of my head right now, so be careful, but I think part of it is we live in a very selfish society.
Right, exactly.
I don't care what party you align yourself with. We become we want what we want. We're not we're not as generous as we used to be. We're not as forgiving as we used to be. And I think part of that can be the media generation, being comfortable saying things online that you'd never possibly say to someone in person anymore. But we've gotten so far past that people are willing to have those nasty engagements in person that they wouldn't have done a few years ago.
Right, and understanding that there's a difference, it's not attacking the person, understanding there's a difference in a view that you hold.
Right.
I think and you know as well as I do, when we grew up back in the day, they would attack the view. Like, okay, this is,
exactly.
Here's what I'm educated on. This is how I understand it. And let me give you the respect so that you can understand it. But they never went after the person and then belittle them or call them names. And it's happening
there's just,
on both sides.
Yeah. And there's a lot of nastiness and name calling. And I even see it among people that I know. And I'm just like, do you really have to go there? Could we?
Right.
Could we have some positive civil discourse here?
Right.
Without actually attacking each other? And I think somebody's got to stand up and start setting the example.
And hopefully both sides will step up and do that, and we'll see an engagement. Because it's, 10, 15 years from now, you're going to have, the millennials are older now. They're not teenagers like we think they are anymore. So 10 years from now, they're going to be in that voting spectrum. And the United States is going to have a huge shift in whatever direction, depending on how the leadership is of those parties.
Yeah. I want to share a real quick story. A few years ago, I was working on a local campaign, and it got pretty nasty. It was a pretty nasty, heated campaign, and I was a little greener at that point. And with age comes wisdom,
right?
Hopefully. Yeah. But anyway, I ended up having a very, very bad relationship with the editor of our local paper. First of all, we'd never met. We'd never talked. Everything was done, conversations behind the scenes, social media posts, blog posts, this, that, and the other. We'd never actually met in person. About 2 years after that particular campaign, I got to thinking about, I've never actually sat down with this person, tried to get to know them, tried to find out what makes them tick. Surely there's something we have in common. And so I sent him an email, and I titled it, "Let's Build a Bridge." And he got back with me within 5 minutes. He's like, he goes, I've been thinking that we should probably sit down and talk sometime. So he set aside about half an hour, went by his office, and we had coffee and talked. I was there an hour and a half. You know what? There was still a lot of stuff we disagreed on, but we saw each other as people.
Yes.
And we saw the things that we did agree on. That has been probably one of the most advantageous relationships that I've ever gone after. To this day, I will tell you that I know he has my back, but I also have his back because I understand him now. I understand that we just see the world through different lenses, but it doesn't mean that we can't be kind to each other. It doesn't mean that we can't have a friendship. And I think that's so important. It's something that's missing, is giving someone an opportunity to show who they are and allowing them to have their opinions without thinking badly of them because of that.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. Well, we're over an hour now, Becky, so I had an amazing time talking with you. I'm going to wrap up everything. We're going to have this. It's going to be all over Albuquerque on the radio, and it'll be on iTunes, Spotify. I really appreciate you coming on today. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy. So are you prepared for the elections coming up? When is what do you have going on that's going to be happening? Are you preparing for 2020, or how does that go?
So right now, I'm in just a little bit of a lull, which is good, that means that gives me time to do some reading, research, look at what the trends are and so forth. So that's all good. And it's good. And like I said, it's good that this job is a little bit seasonal because you can't go like that indefinitely.
Right.
You got to have a starting place and a stopping place. You got to just have that time to kind of breathe and regroup before jumping back on it again. But during the slow time, I do a lot of research. I actually make myself available to the candidates that I worked with, getting them into office. I'll still consult with them. I'll keep an eye on their social media, try to because a lot of them are in session right now, so they
Right.
don't have time to watch everything all the time. But I'm able to kind of keep an eye on the pulse of what's going on, what the constituents are saying. So anyway, it's just a nice, even-keeled time for me right now. I can enjoy my family a little bit too, which is good.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you or see what you're doing or wanted to have a consultation with you, what is your website or social media? How would they get a hold of you?
Okay, so I only have a website. It's redelephantcampaigns.com, and my contact information is there. And they can always, phone number is there. They can get a hold of me via email or by phone, text. But my email, let me give you my email address, though. It's Becky, Becky, at redelephantcampaigns.com.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Becky, and I appreciate you joining me today and sharing about running a successful campaign. And if there's any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to get a hold of Becky. She'd be more than happy to consult with you if you're a national campaign or whatever it may be. She's a political expert, so I would encourage you to contact her in that arena. She'll let you know, like you said, if you need that come to Jesus meeting, call Becky.
Exactly. And I'm always happy to give someone the first free initial consultation.
Oh, perfect. Well, we're gonna let you go. Get back to your snow. We're at 64 degrees here today, so.
Well, I'm gonna go sit by the fire now.
Well, thanks, Becky. I appreciate it, and have a great day.
This is the Albuquerque Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week, we interview leading local business leaders to inspire the vision and spirit that is in every entrepreneur, discussing strengths, weakness, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together to fulfill a shared vision of a new future for Albuquerque.